Even though I've started doing different kinds of content, this channel is still primarily about the Thai language, and I didn't want to lose sight of that. I'll just go through some basic vocabulary related to this current project, and it might be useful to you if you get involved in a building project yourself in Thailand. The Thai word for tradesman is quite similar to the Thai word for elephant, except they use different tone marks. So the basic sound is the chaw chang, sara ngong, and tradesman uses the first tone mark, and elephant uses the second tone mark. And because of the different tone marks and the tone rules, we get a different tone. So tradesman has a falling tone. That's as if you're calling someone from a distance. So you put a lot of energy into the start of the word and then it sort of falls away. Chang! And elephant has a high tone. So when you say that, you'd say it with a higher tone than you would usually use in normal speech. Chang! I apologise for my pronunciation, which probably was incorrect. Tones are the most difficult aspect of the Thai language. I'm not an expert, and at the moment I don't have a native speaker to help me. Of course, there are many different kinds of tradesmen, so the basic word for tradesman will be followed by another word which describes the type of tradesman. So in the first word we have mai with a high tone, and that means wood. So this is a wood tradesman, or in English it will be a carpenter. The second one, Phai Fa, means electricity. So Chang Phai Fa will be an electrician. Third one, Prat Pa. Prat Pa means waterworks or plumbing. So Chang Prat Pa will be a plumber. And lastly, the one that I'm using at the moment, Grabeung, is tile. So Chang Grabeung will be a tiler. With Thai tradesmen, there are similarities and differences compared to other countries. One similarity is that there are good and bad tradesmen. I've seen both. One big difference is that compared to somewhere like Germany, there's going to be a lot of regulation. So in Germany, if you want to be a tradesman, you have to have a license and you have to show that you've got the proper qualifications and experience to do that job. In Thailand, there's no regulation. For doctors, there's regulation. So if you go to a clinic, on the wall you'll see something called a Bai Anuyat. Bai is card and Anuyat is permission. So they've got permission to do that job. There have been a few problems with doctors who are not trained as plastic surgeons doing plastic surgery for money and being problems. But generally in the medical profession there's not a problem. But with tradesmen, there's lots of guys who basically haven't got a clue what they're doing and they set themselves up as tradesmen. And I've seen a few of those in person. There's a characteristic in Thailand that the Thais refer to as mak ngai. And the direct translation is like easy. I tend to translate it as the path of least resistance. So with many Thais, when they approach a task, they will look for the easiest, simplest, quickest way to do that task, and not necessarily the best way. So I've had quite a lot of tradesmen come into the house and they'll look at the job and they'll work out the way that's quickest and easiest for them, but not necessarily best for you. And then they'll try to convince you that their way is the best way. So sometimes you have to sort of fight with them to get what you really want. I've also found there are quite a few who don't care what damage they cause when doing a job. When we were in the rented house, there was a plumbing problem. It was a pipe that was buried in the wall behind some tiles. So the guy came in, just smashed all the tiles off, smashed the concrete to get to the pipe. Okay, he needed to do that. He fixed the problem, but then as far as he was concerned, that was it, finished. It was fixed, the plumbing problem was fixed, but the wall looked a complete mess, and he just walked out. I was only a tenant, but even so, I wasn't very impressed, and I certainly wouldn't have been impressed if I was the owner of the house. In my professional life, I was a computer hardware engineer, and when I watch someone work, I get a fairly good idea quite quickly if they know what they're doing or not. And with a lot of the guys we've had in over the years, you can see that they don't know what they're doing. But on the other hand, there have also been some very good ones as well. So what I've made sure to do is that every time that a good guy comes is to make sure that I've got his contact information so that next time I have a problem, I know the right person to call. So now I have a list. I've got plumbers, electricians, guys that do full ceilings, tilers. So if, any sort of problem I got, I know exactly who to go to, and I would recommend that you do the same. If you come to Thailand and you haven't had any experience, you don't know anyone, then do what the Thais do and ask a local for a recommendation. This is how Thailand works. There's not a lot of sort of advertising. Most business is done on personal recommendations. Another similarity with tradesmen from other countries is that these guys never seem to have just one job. They've always got half a dozen jobs on the go, and they flit around from job to job, and they can be quite unreliable. Yesterday my tiler said he would be here this morning. He phoned again this morning to say he wouldn't be and that he's coming tomorrow. At least he had the courtesy to call. A lot of the time they don't call you and they just leave you waiting at home, and you can wait all day and they don't come, and it's just a complete waste of a day. Another thing that can be a big problem is language. And I know this is a generalisation, but most of the guys working as tradesmen tend to have quite a low level of education. And I've never met one that can speak English. So if you can speak Thai, it really does help, even a little bit of Thai. And I know that a lot of foreign guys here sort of communicate through their wives and girlfriend, but my wife's not here at the moment, and next week when the tiler's here, she's going to be at work, so she's just not going to be around. So I need to communicate with him. And the other thing is that even when she's here and they're making decisions between like her and the tradesman, I want to know what they're saying, because she might be agreeing to something that I don't agree with. So I want to have my input as well. The biggest problem I have is that here in southern Thailand, most tradesmen speak the southern dialect, and my Thai is the central dialect. But I found that if I speak slowly and they speak slowly, we can find a way to communicate with each other. There seem to be some regional differences as well. I have a neighbour. In fact, his house had the same problem as my house. And I didn't mention in previous videos that quite a few of the other houses have had this problem. And they've got away with not having all of the tiles replaced, they've just replaced some tiles. But I suspect that they still have problems elsewhere, and they will get problems in the future. Anyway, whenever I meet this guy, he just wants to stop and shoot the breeze, and he just moans continuously about the building standards where we are here in Songkhla province. And his view is that all the best tradesmen in Thailand go to Bangkok, where they can get lots of work and they can get paid more money. And I've also heard this from a few other people as well. So Bangkok seems to be about the best place to be if you want building work done. And out in the provinces, it can be a little bit hit and miss.